Okay, yeah, again, the cheapest intro in the business. That's me, or that's us. Welcome, everybody, to the Mixmaster Wyatt Show. And we're taping this live today on Sunday on a beautiful summer day for everybody here. Episode 4. And I'm very excited for this episode, and I've been waiting a long time for this episode. Because on this episode, we have the masterminds of SoundToys with us today from live from Vermont and Tennessee at the same time. We have Ken in Vermont, and and Mitch over here from Tennessee live. What's
Hello.
up, guys? How are you?
Hey, team.
Sorry?
Oh, just saying hello, team.
And we also have our celebrity guest of Dubspot mixing and mastering graduates from the online school and also from New York City and soon from Los Angeles who are with us. They're all certified SoundToys experts, ninjas of SoundToys, but they're not harming people. They're actually using SoundToys for the better of humanity to save the world. But they're hanging out. They got some questions. They've been using all the SoundToys plugins for years, so we will have them chime in a little bit later. And for those of you who saw the trailer, Ken was nice enough to have me up to the lab up in Burlington last month, and what did we do? We had incredible press sandwiches, amazing local beer. We took a boat ride on Lake Champlain, and we got a tour of the facility. So in your spare time, either before or after you watch the show, watch the trailer because it gives you sort of a visual tour of what's happening up there. But anyway, I see sunshine, Ken. It looks like a beautiful day.
It's really bright up here. Bright and warm.
How's it going? How's everything?
It's going great, and I think there's an airplane going by right now. But yeah, it's going really well. Trying to keep working, in the summertime here. Things are good. Good. And Mitch, it looks like also a sunny day, unless that's incandescent lighting. It looks like a beautiful day down by you. The lighting is fake, but there is sun outside. I just outside my cave. It's not a man cave; it's a gear cave. But
I think it's you who's radiating the light. Really?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's my interpretation. All right, you guys, let's get right into it. Let's do a little bit of a walk down memory lane, or a little biographical information on both of you, and also sort of how you came together. Ken, I know from our last hang that you grew up in New Jersey. Were you musical as a kid? Was it always about music?
I played guitar since I was 8 years old, and always wished I had a piano in the house, but never did. And instead, my parents gave me organ lessons, which I think they envisioned me playing in a church or something.
How did that go?
It was okay. I mean, it taught me the basics. It taught me music theory and scales and chords and all that on the keyboard. But I was always fascinated with guitar pedals, kind of the more kind of weird side of things.
And did you take guitar lessons or autodidact?
Yeah, I did. I took guitar lessons for pretty much my whole, elementary school, high school time.
And did you do the band thing, or were you sort of the loner guitar player in your room?
I had really shitty bands.
I've never heard of that. Were they cover bands or originals?
Mostly cover bands. That was kind of a high school thing.
Okay. What were you guys covering? What was the hot cover?
Oh my God, back then?
Yes.
It was like Cheap Trick, The Cars.
Cars?
That's good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, and then were you also sort of technically inclined with computers, or did that come later, or did that also sort of, in terms of programming and engineering, was that always part of the thing, or did that come later?
I'm not sure we had computers back then.
A good point.
But yeah, I was kind of fascinated with circuits and analog
stuff and guitar pedals and taking them apart and making them work and sort of trying to build things, whether it was taking apart my bicycle or building a mini bike to building a some kind of effect.
Was that self-taught, or did you learn it?
Or
were you taught it, rather?
I went to engineering school. I got an electrical engineering degree at RPI up in upstate New York, and so a little bit of self-taught, but I got the formal training, the formal, all the theory and the math and all that stuff there.
Was that a practical thing to please your parents, or did you know you were going to do music?
You mean going to engineering school?
Yeah, engineering school. Did you have your evil plan like in your mind, or were you going to have a straight life and have a design I don't know what?
I think if I had my druthers, I would have probably majored in music and did engineering at the same time, but I think I probably realized pretty quickly that was a hard road to go down.
Especially with shitty cover bands.
Right, especially, yeah.
I thought that would inspire you. The bottles flying, but
the wedding gig wasn't going to be the the lifestyle that I was dreaming of.
But that wasn't the okay. That wasn't the dream. When did Eventide happen?
That was almost right out of college. I graduated school in the mid '80s, and at the time, audio really wasn't such a big thing, or even an accepted thing to study technology-wise. I did a little bit of it in school, and almost all the people that I went to school with were working for defense contractors, pretty much 90%, and I just did not have any interest in that at all. So I just, I had a stack of keyboard magazines, guitar player magazines, and just went through and made a giant list of all the companies that made cool shit and sent them all letters. It must have been 100 letters, just trying to get a foot in the door at some kind of music tech company.
And they called you back, you had the interview, you were hired.
Well, the really random thing is Eventide was pretty much right around the corner from where I grew up, and it turned out that the guy at the time who was the engineering manager went to the same school as I did, so that was like a little connection.
Okay.
Interview.
A little bro thing with him.
Little bro thing.
And how long were you at Eventide?
I was there for 8 years.
Okay. And now the first product you were involved in was not the H3000. That was more that came later, or was that one of the first things?
I mean, to be honest, I think the first year or two, I was probably worked on a couple of products that just went nowhere. Projects that we started something, and then somewhere along the line, it was obvious that this wasn't going to work for some odd reason, and not a lot happened. And at the time, Eventide was kind of a weird time for them because they had their last product was the Reverb, the SP2016. I don't know if you remember that box.
I do.
And I did a little bit of work on that at the very tail end, but they were kind of struggling a little bit in the audio industry, and they were making all their money from computer memory cards, like these expansion cards that they sold to very specialized computers, and they were also trying to get into the avionics industry. So that was their big focus, and they decided to make kind of at the time it seemed like one last push to do a new product. They wanted to do another harmonizer, and it had always been done by this, or at least while we were there, by an outside team guy that was working in California. And we, myself and Bob Belcher, who works with me now, and Dave Durr, who's founded Empirical Labs, Distressor fame.
Huge fan.
We were all kind of fresh out of school and super gung-ho, and we just rallied really hard to give us a chance to work on this product. And somehow we convinced them to let us do it, even though we had no idea what we were doing.
That's always the catch-22. And so what year sort of kind of was that?
That would have been, let's see, probably 85, 86.
Okay. Now, is it fair to say that the H3000 was like a bigger hit than anticipated and the biggest Eventide hit of that era? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We had no idea. I mean, we were like shitting our pants, designing this thing and watching Yamaha developing. I think the SPX 90 came out at the time, which was a huge, huge hit, and we're like,
Yep.
oh my god, how are we gonna possibly compete with this? I forget what the price was, but there's no way we could produce something at this cost and this power. And I think at the same time, the Lexicon, the PCM 70, had come out not too long before that. So we were just like really unsure about.
But the H3000 went much, much farther than any of those other products, and it also did something that the other boxes didn't do. It was crazy fun. Like, it had some fun stuff. I think that was the beginning of a sense of humor a little bit in some of these boxes. I think your early SoundToys kind of sense of humor showed through early, or that's the way I interpreted it. And that the H3000 was just a hit. I'm pretty sure by the late 90s, early 90s, late 80s, that every single studio in the world had one or two of them. And whether you were in Zurich or Dubai or Nashville or LA or New York or Ottawa, you had one. It became an industry standard. If you had a studio and you had a console, you had an H3000, or you weren't real. Kind of. I mean, I remember going around; they just were ubiquitous.
Yeah, it took me. I think it took all of us a while to figure that out. I think the owner at the time didn't want to let us know how successful it was.
Yeah, we sold 2 yesterday, guys.
Right.
I'm gonna go to my boat now. Call me.
They're still there too. They're all still in all those major studios. If you go today, they're still in the racks. We're always blown away when we go to New York or LA or Nashville, as you said, and there they are. They're still working. They're still being used.
It's a legacy product, and there's not a lot, especially within the digital realm, that there's not a lot of products that really can say that. All right, so pause there. Let's move into Mitch land. A scary, colorful place. So, growing up, Mitch, was it music the whole time? Did it come later? Was it always about the music?
My story is exactly the opposite of Ken's. So if you just kind of take what he said, flip it over. I'm self-taught on everything, and I'm not one of the code guys. I'm just the yelling, "Hey, everybody, look at me!" But I'm super excited about the products, and that's kind of how I got started. I was like a kid going to Radio Shack to play with the little MG1 and freaking out over the noises it could make, and I was, the music was turning into sort of synth-based music at the time with the Cars and Devo hitting the radio and coming out of the disco era with all the synths, and the synths just made me nuts. I loved the sounds that were happening, and so I kind of self-taught myself synthesis. I would hang out at the music store every single day playing on a Prophet 5 and just drooling nonstop, and I ended up selling more Prophet 5s than the keyboard salesperson just because I was so rabid for the thing.
And where was this, Mitch? Where was this?
This was here in Knoxville. I've been here the whole time, so
okay.
Yeah, so it's like I'm afraid to go anywhere else. But all self-taught music synthesis and everything. But I finally got to the point where I could because I was self-taught, I could sort of relate things to people who weren't technical, and it made sense. So it's been a pretty cool gig, and that's kind of bled through to everything. Like SoundToys, like I don't know what's going on, but if you press this, it does that. It sounds cool.
All right, so now, when did you two link up, and how?
Well, my story was, kind of the music retail gigs, and which was awesome because I get to hang out with synthesizers all the time, and then work my way down until I finally hit, I need to move on and start selling computers, and then that came together, and I ended up at Waves, which was based, it still is based here in Knoxville in their U.S. office. And I was with Waves for 6 years. And when I left there, or they left me, or whatever the situation was, I started a independent rep firm because I thought that'd be cool. I can go round up some of these awesome little plugin companies that are maybe not getting the attention they deserve, and do some good things for them. And Ken was one of the first ones to sign on, which was beautiful. Wave Mechanics at the day, and had a couple more, and that work lasted for about 6 months before I completely was so far in the hole that it wasn't working out. So I call everybody, let them know I'm closing up, and at that point Ken's like, well, let's just bring you on. It's a beautiful thing. It's so
I met you while you were still at Waves, Mitch. You were like a rabid fan at the time.
Huge fan. I was pushing. I was definitely pushing SoundToys because there was no reason not to. I mean, my gig has always been push people toward the thing they need, and if it's not your thing, then you try to tell them the thing you know about. I mean, hey, you know, Waves has some great products. They do, but and SoundToys has great products too. There's plenty of room for everybody, and not everything is for everybody, right? I mean, so you try to help people out to the right solution. Now, SoundToys, of course, is the right solution for everyone, but
I think so. So yeah, I mean, clearly,
it's clear.
it's clear. Okay, unanimous. Let's rewind for a second, Ken. So you're at Eventide. You have this big burst of success. How do we get from Eventide to the founding and starting of SoundToys? How does that happen?
Let's see. So we finished up the H3000. It took forever. There was like multiple revisions of that and flavors. And then we started on the next product, which was the DSP 4000. And at the time, there were still a few things I wanted to do with the H3000. So we started on this DSP 4000 project, completely new from the ground up signal processor. And I started working on something called Mod Factory, which was a plugin essentially for the H3000. It came on an EEPROM chip, and I did this, totally with Eventide's blessing. I started making this thing and putting it into little boxes. I took a little ad out in the back of Mix magazine to sell it as an add-on. I forget how much it was. It might have been a couple hundred, $250 or something at the time to buy this chip that added these two new modular effects algorithms to the H3000. So that was, my first start in actually doing something of my own business. And at the time, it was called Crescent Engineering.
And what year is this, sort of?
God, Mitch, you might even remember that better than I do. Late 80s.
Okay.
89, 88, something like that. Eventually, people liked that, and Eventide just licensed it from me and created another rev of the H3000 with that in it. I stayed long enough to pretty much finish up the DSP 4000 and was kind of itching to just get out on my own and do something different. And left. Kind of segued myself out of there. I was like half-time for a long time. Really totally friendly terms. And started consulting for a few years. And at the time, Pro Tools was just gearing up with TDM systems, and I saw that, and it was really familiar because it was similar technology. The DSP chips that they were using were similar to what we had used at Eventide, and I was kind of hitting them up and like, oh, this is a great opportunity. I'd love to do some plugins. And they were really hesitant at the time, the CEO of DigiDesign, because he was courting Eventide to do plugins. And I think I lost your...
I got you.
Okay. You still hearing me?
I can still hear you. I don't know.
Okay, I can't hear Danny.
We can keep talking until he comes back.
Okay. But anyway, so eventually DigiDesign said, cool, let's do something. And I was working on this plugin, which eventually became Pure Pitch, which was a pitch shifter that could manipulate vocals without creating the chipmunk effect. And it was sort of a technologically motivated product. That, I thought it was really cool. Unfortunately, at the exact same instant, Antares launched Autotune, which was like dropping a landmine into the world of plugins. So it completely overshadowed us, and we were playing catch up for a while. And we spun our own pitch correction thing called Pitch Doctor, and then decided to not, fight the uphill battle of taking on Autotune, and created just to kind of go back in the comfortable world of effects with a plugin called Sound Blender.
Yeah.
And that one was kind of the charm for us. People just dug it for whatever reason. It was kind of a missing piece in the Pro Tools plugin world, the multi-effects, and that was our first real success.
And what year was this, sort of?
Early 90s, 91, 92, 93.
And was the Pro Tools? Was that Peter?
I might be off on that.
Was that Peter Gosher?
At the time, the CEO, I think Peter may have already left.
He might have been gone.
So
by
maybe
then.
it was more like mid 90s.
Okay.
And the CEO was Dave Froker.
Yes. Okay.
It was before Dave LeBolt took over.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. So, but this was so SoundToys as a company. The name started what year now?
2004?
2000, 2001, somewhere around there.
2001.
As a company name. As a company name. You switched 2003. You started the product line. It was a product line initially.
Yeah, we were doing all these, sort of tech-driven products, Pure Pitch and Pitch Doctor and Sound Blender, and then I sort of wanted to do something that was going back to making effects that were really kind of fun and musical, and really the idea that I had was this, and it felt like nobody was really doing it, was to come up with effects that could play with tempo and rhythm and be synced to the beat, which I know was one of these things I would like go to bed and think about that. And so we launched this new line of plugins and we called the line SoundToys. The company's name at the time was Wave Mechanics.
Okay.
And then so we were kind of playing with these, two different sort of types of products, and at some point it just, to me, it felt like it was just simpler to just switch over to SoundToys. We were getting a lot of confusion with waves too. People confused wave mechanics with waves, and to me, just a long-term thing, it was just much better to do something completely different and unique.
So at this time, you're still in New Jersey, is that correct? You're not up in.
We had moved to Vermont in the year 2000.
Okay. So that all sort of happened at the same time, and how many employees were there at that time?
I had Bob Belcher, who's been with me, or who we worked together at Eventide, moved up here with me, and one other DSP engineer moved up. So there were 3 of us, and I had an office manager back in Jersey who was kind of tailing off. She wasn't going to move. So it was really just the 3 of us. And Mitch, when did you come on? What was your year?
2003.
2003. So it was the 3 of us. I hired an office manager, somebody to do, orders and things like that, all the things that have to be done to keep an office running. So then we went up to 4. Hired Mitch, hired another guy. It became 5, 6. And then we sort of struggled through. That was pretty close to the time when pretty much every Pro Tools plugin got cracked.
I was, we got to talk about this crack stuff. So, when was this sort of the crack years? It was in New York. It was the '80s, but in plugins, I'm just saying.
It was early 2000s. And it was
Okay.
back when it was Pro Tools Mix was the platform, and I'm pretty sure every single plugin was cracked. And it was pretty common practice for people to walk around with a CD. At the time, people used CDs to install software
Yeah.
full of all cracked plugins.
Yep.
So somebody could walk into a studio with a CD full of cracked plugins, install them so they could open their sessions or do their work, and then leave it there. And it just spread virally like that, where pretty much it was hard to find a studio that didn't have a machine full of cracked plugins.
Absolutely. Was this a bad few months or a bad few years?
It was more than a few months. I mean, it was a stretch of time. Might have been a year or two.
Would you stay up at night thinking about how to combat this from a technical perspective, or I don't know, like what obviously it catches you off guard, but once it's happening, you realize, look, if we could make digital copies of groceries, what would happen to farmers? If I could go shopping, if I could go to Whole Foods and I could make you a copy of my shopping, it just doesn't work for the stuff that people need. So did obviously, what was the first thing reaction from a business standpoint? Let me figure out how to protect against this, or what went through your mind?
I mean, we always did a little bit of that. I mean, that was some sort of a constant.
Okay.
Concern of making sure that our products get paid for. And we were, we had never really exploded that much, so we were super lean, and it was a very, very tight ship.
Yeah.
We're a small company, and in a way, it was super tight, but we were able to survive just because of that.
The other thing too that was kind of interesting is I think because I wasn't with SoundToys when a lot of that was happening, but what I saw was they actually appealed to a particular segment of the market that paid. They were in post and sound design and stuff like that. Those guys, I mean, it was all about that big industry, and they loved SoundToys for good reason at that time, and they paid. So it was a kind of a perfect spot to be during the worst place to be.
Well, I'm going to let some of the students speak for themselves, but at DubSpot, both online school, the online mixing and mastering program, in New York and in LA, SoundToys has always, for 5 years, has been part of our curriculum. And the way the students learn, first they learn 3 levels. Level 1 is how to make a basic mix, compression, EQ, saturation. Of course, saturation for us is Decapitator, period. And reverb and how to build a reverb matrix, level balancing, all that stuff. Level 2 is entirely devoted to SoundToys, learning the SoundToys bundle. And it works a little bit 2 ways, where, one, you're learning a bundle that all the professionals use regardless of the genre. But when you learn EchoBoy, 1, you learn EchoBoy, 2, you learn all of the possibilities of delay in general, right? So the learning is twofold. Phase Mistress, same. Pan Man, same. So it's been part of our curriculum since we really got the curriculum locked in, and the students love it. And because the price is reasonable, they buy it, and we know this, and we all know this, and it's a beautiful thing. And because, and I have to agree with Mitch here a little bit, because they identify with the excellence and the spirit of the product and the reasonable price, they buy it. That's been a beautiful thing in our experience, and I don't know if that necessarily goes for all the plugins across the board, but it certainly goes for SoundToys. I would say iZotope is another one where people feel that it's an excellent product, it's a reasonable price, and they buy it. And that's also another part of our core curriculum. And I think the SoundToys and the iZotope work very much hand in hand, because all of the soulfulness and sense of humor and playfulness comes from the SoundToys bundle, and iZotope is sort of this MIT scientific stuff. You know what I mean? And when you have the best of both worlds, you can, in our opinion, get almost anything you want done. So they work very, very well together. But
That's a really interesting observation.
Sorry, go ahead, Ken. Finish your thought.
It just reminds me of back in the Eventide days. It was a similar sort of dichotomy or dynamic between Eventide and Lexicon.
Yeah.
Where Lexicon was sort of the serious, they're very focused on reverb, super high quality, and we were sort of focused on having fun and being musical.
Punk kids and their attitude.
Right.
I think you need both. I think you need
exactly.
The yin and the yang. Anyway. You know what that means, everybody. It's time for the guest celebrity audience to turn on their cameras. Here the cameras will start turning on. There they are.
Everyone's coming to life.
Everyone's coming to life. Or you were really sitting perfectly still. These are all of our top graduates. That's why they're here. Top in their class from all over the world. I have a bunch more questions, but I've already monopolized the first 30 minutes here. So I don't know who has a question for Ken and Mitch. Oh, Chen, jump right in, Chen.
Yeah, hey.
Hey.
It's very nice to meet you guys. I'm dead fan of SoundToys. Dead fan.
Oh, good. That's great to hear.
Yeah. Would you guys recommend for us, like very green hands, learn for programming things? I've saw the preview video like 1 week ago, and I found Ken was checking lots of analog gear and reading their schematic. It seemed like the knowledge of electronic engineering would help you guys a lot. So from an engineer aspect, what would you recommend us to learn? Just very fundamental for beginners. And it's even better if you guys can recommend some books.
If you want to create your own effects or for music production?
For an engineering aspect. So for programming, maybe.
Oh, that's a good question. Obviously, there's a huge community in Max programming, which is a great thing to look at.
Yeah, I started to learn that now.
Yeah, it can be a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
you can go really deep down that hole and not ever make music. But if you want to learn about signal processing and putting interfaces together, that's not a bad start.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a book, Ken, or is it by the time it gets in a book, it's too old now? It's sort of like, people don't buy newspapers because by the time, since it's been printed up, if you look online, you get the really recent news. So, it's when people ask me about books, sometimes I'm like, books, if they were made 3 years ago, don't matter anymore. I don't know. Is that true for engineering? Does it move so fast?
Well, it used to be much more so. I think the industry, at least in our world, outpaced academia because it was everything was a secret. Nobody talked about anything, whether it's how do you design a reverb or a pitch shifter or anything. It was all super hush-hush. But I think the academics are catching up a little bit, so there are actually some good books out there now. There's one out there called Digital Audio Effects, I think is the name of the book, by this guy in Germany, Udo Zolzer. That's great when it covers a lot of ground, everything from reverb to equalizers to pretty much all aspects of audio signal processing.
Okay, that's a good one. Awesome. Other questions? Yes, we'll go left to right for no apparent reason. Chip.
Sorry, cut out for me. Should I go or am I?
Yes, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's awesome to have you guys here. It's really cool. You sort of seem like regular guys, but you've also just made so much technology that's so influential. It's just really, really neat. So one thing I would love to know is what are some of
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
He just turned into Daft Punk.
What he wants to know is very secret.
It was going to be a very hard question, I think.
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Chip, you went into cyberspace. Try again.
Oh, am I back now?
You're back.
You're back.
Okay. So I was where I don't. Well, I guess I'll just start over. I don't know what you heard or what you didn't. What are some examples of songs where you really love what people did? Using your products.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
That is a good one.
But I'll let you start, Mitch.
Oh, good. Well, it's so hard to pick out something specific. I know the band Yeasayer is a huge fan, and they've done a ton of stuff with our products. Obviously, you've probably seen some of the stuff. We kind of always go back to Nine Inch Nails because, man, those guys use our stuff so much. It's everybody in the band uses our stuff, so it's kind of freaky and cool. And they've probably got more examples than anybody else. I mean, Trent told us a story about one of the songs on With Teeth that basically he said he started with a little drum beat and he put EchoBoy on it and it took it somewhere else, so he laid a bass on top of that and he put EchoBoy on the bass and it took it somewhere else, and every track had EchoBoy on it. And it's like, wow, no cooler story than that.
well, on that note, I remember talking to Ken up in Vermont, and correct me if I got this wrong, Ken, but some part of Decapitator came out of Trent using EchoBoy's just saturation with no delay going. Is that?
Well, it wasn't just Trent. Trent
okay.
And Mitch. I'm not sure who was the first one to try it, but Mitch.
The first one to try it, actually, the idea came from Morgan Page,
okay,
who was using it on a vocal and using the mix control to keep the clarity on the vocal, and he passed that idea on, and I was like, wow, that's really cool, and I started messing with it, and then found out that, oh my God, this is like the coolest bass guitar processing plugin ever made. Turn all the delay off and turn the saturation on, and the bass was just jumping out all of a sudden. So I created
Mitch built a set of presets called Bass Guitar Tone Machine, based on that idea, and it was bugging me to make a plugin.
Really bugging
And I was like, oh yeah, it'd be really easy. And then I was just me being me. I had to start from scratch. And yeah, because if it was gonna, basically my feeling is if I was gonna do a dedicated saturation distortion device, I had to really understand that from top to bottom and dig into gear that was either designed to do that or did it really well. So it was a part understanding exactly what was going on in the circuitry, what was going on sonically, and then trying to figure out a way to recreate that digitally. So it took, I don't know, it's probably 3 years later we had Decapitator.
Unbelievable. Well, I mean, everybody on this call knows, and everybody out in Dubspot land knows, that we decapitate everything, basically. No, we really do. We really, really do. We pretend that we have $400,000 of kit in our laptop, and we say, I want to run, the vocal through the EMI console, and I want to run the bass through the Ampex, and I want to run the guitars through the Neve, and I want a triode tube on the synth, and I want a pentode tube on this, and we have, $400,000 of gear that we never have to pay electricity for. This royal virtual studio. So literally everything gets decapitated, quite literally. And I think one of the things that people see when they start to understand saturation, and sometimes a little dab will do you, sometimes just a little bit will create a richness that as soon as they just go home and open up an old production and just saturate everything a little bit, all of a sudden, the sun comes out from behind the clouds, and they're like, I knew I was missing something. And a lot of the great European producers, they knew from this. So, then when they start comparing their stuff to other people, like, that's what I was missing. I wasn't saturating enough, or I wasn't using the right saturation,
or I wasn't, whatever the case. So Decapitator is a humongous part of what we do, and the fact that it took 3 years, that makes it even more special. Yes,
And
Mitch, I don't know.
This is a good spot to tell you a little behind. Yeah, it's a good spot to tell you a little behind the scenes there too. It was kind of funny because what happened was with EchoBoy, there were delays out there. But Ken finds a niche. He found this spot that was totally missing, which was there was nothing that you could take and put on a lead vocal and have a nice, clean, warm delay. It was all kind of guitar-based stuff. So he's like, all right, this is really important. It's really missing, and he puts together EchoBoy, which took a while too because he's really picky, but it pays off. It pays off every time.
Don't go changing. Don't you go changing,
no.
Ken. Don't go changing.
Not at all. But so we put together EchoBoy and get it out the door, and it is just that. It's a great delay, and you can put it on a vocal, and lots of people did. Then kind of the same thing happened with Decapitator when he goes off in his rabbit hole and he finds all the stuff to make the saturation. He finds another gap, and what's really missing is like a full frequency spectrum distortion, something that you can distort a piano or a drum kit and not a guitar, which are band limited. So that's why it seems like Decapitator really kind of kicked off, is because you could put it on anything, and a little bit of sweetness or a whole lot of destruction and hell, and whichever direction you need to go. So he's a master at finding those gaps, things that people need and they don't even know it yet.
It changes people's life, and it certainly changed mine, and there's nothing like it. Other questions? Yes, Francesco, go ahead.
Hi, how's it going? Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Good, I can hear you.
Hey, hi, my name is Francesco. Right now I'm in Dallas. I do a lot of EDM, but mostly in the Latin world. In the industry.
Oh.
The filters is amazing. I'm almost using it every since that I got going on, and everything gets its right place, and it's just beautiful. And I noticed you guys also have on your website the tips and tricks, and that's kind of cool. And I was wondering if you guys, plan to keep that up alive and maybe shoot more tips and tricks and different up-to-date stuff like on the real world to kind of, keep touching base and helping others finding out what we found out as well.
I'll let you take this one, Mitch.
I know, I put it right on Mitch. I just intuitively did that. Sorry.
No, yes, absolutely. We've just been talking about that. I love doing the tips and tricks videos. Love it. I love sharing things. I'm not a great mix engineer, otherwise it'd be super famous. But I love sharing tricks and ideas that people can take and go to new creative places with, which is my goal, with each one of those videos, is say, hey, here's something that's an interesting idea. I may have pulled it out of the air, or I may have found someone, out there doing something really cool and try to share it with everybody else. But yeah, I plan to do a lot more of those this year. Good stuff coming. SoundToys.
Good
Stuff.
Is there a flanger coming up soon?
Wait,
Daniel put him up to that.
Guilty as charged, but it's not just me. You can see.
We need a flanger.
Yes.
They can do it. They can harmonize that if you want to hear that.
Man, you're getting the time.
I definitely want to make that happen.
Yeah.
If only to make you happy, Danny.
But it's not just me, Ken. It's everybody here. We want the ultimate SoundToys legacy flanger doubler.
Oh, man. It's been on the list for a really long time.
Yeah, it has.
Did you guys see
it's
this?
funny. I mean, sometimes these things will be on lists and they don't get done right away. Mostly because when we dive into it, it ends up taking a really long time to do it right and to really, like flanging. There's probably a dozen, well, maybe less than a dozen, but a good collection of iconic flangers out there that we'd want to capture that vibe, but also do it in our own way.
And then a year and a half goes by.
Right.
And find the spot. Find the sweet thing that you didn't know you needed.
Right.
But yeah, I love flanging. I think it belongs in our lineup.
Okay, good. It's unanimous. We want flanging from you. Other questions? Yes, Paul.
Cool. Hey, I'm Paul. I graduated Dubspot in 2013, and I now live in Vancouver, DJing and producing music. Huge fan of the SoundToys bundle. The Phase Mistress. That one is absolutely insane and complex. And I generally just stick to the presets because it's so crazy. But can you talk about like how long that took to develop and like, you know, what were some of the complications in making that one?
Let me think about that one. That was an interesting one because it came out before EchoBoy, and in a way it was a little bit before we got in the groove of like I think EchoBoy hit the right groove of, you know, getting the vibe of different units and all that, and Phase Mistress was almost there but not quite. But one of the complications with it was I seem to remember there was a company called Trillium Lane Labs that was developing a phaser at the same time, and we released a beta version of ours, and one of our beta testers, who was really vocal, was just insisted that this other company's was much better, and so it was, there goes another 6 months of like back to the drawing board, start over again.
He's not kidding.
Yeah.
Because I'm the sales guy, so I'm like, let's get it going. Let's put it out the door. And they're like, yeah, no, it sounds a little smoother in this area. And Ken's like, oh, and I'm like, no. Oh, man, we lost him. But yeah, but in the end, it paid off.
So from start to finish.
It's actually one that I'd love to go back to and refine a little bit. I wouldn't mind taking a second swipe at that one. It's got a lot of cool sounds. It's a little bit complicated to use and understand.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's one of those things where I understand it basically, but then there's a part where I get lost. But it doesn't stop me from twisting knobs and flipping switches until I'm happy. And
well, I mean, the basic concept behind phasing is, and you see this with most phasers that you see out there, whether it's a pedal or a rack mount phaser, they'll have this concept of how many stages. Like Moog had a 12-stage phaser, and all it means is there's like 12 filters kind of stacked together. And something like the Univibe was a 2-stage phaser. It was as simple as can be. So what we built was an algorithm that tried to cover that full range of everything from the simplest of, you know, early phasers like the Univibe to the, you know, the more complex like some of the roll-in pieces and the Moog and, you know, stuff beyond. But we did it without necessarily specifically emulating any particular piece of gear. It was just more of a generalized
okay
thing.
But what is 5 times 7? What is that?
Now we're going to get into the advanced part of the course.
and I probably won't understand your explanation, but I just want to ask you, you know, even if it goes over my head, what is 5 times 7?
Okay, so you've got a phaser has, like I was saying, it's got some number of stages of these phase shifting filters. And the way a phaser normally works is you mix the dry signal with this phase shifted signal, and it creates this filtering notch effect. But it gets more intense when you add feedback to that signal flow. So the one kind of curious thing, I don't know if anybody does this, is we designed it so that you can have the number of feedback stages be different than the feed forward stages. So 5 by 7 probably means 5 feedback stages and 7 feed forward stages. And every single one of those combinations, which you can imagine with, you know, up to 16 feed forward stages and 16 feedback stages, there's like I don't know, some very large number of possible sounds that you can get out of that thing.
I just flip through it until I'm like, I love it.
Well, and if you read the manual, that's exactly what we say. You can't break it, so just flip some stuff.
Yeah, just mess around with it.
Just go for it.
That's what I do. Very cool. Other questions? Anyone? Okay, so how long did it take to make Pan Man, for example? Was that a year and change again?
Let's see.
Weird. Ken's got that.
Pan Man was released at the same time as Decapitator, right, Mitch?
Yep. That was
so that was when we brought a new guy on, another like really brilliant DSP engineer by the name of Chris, who lives in Florida now, but he was up here for a few years, and that was sort of his training program, was to build Pan-Man. So him and I worked together, and he wrote all the code and pretty much built the thing from the ground up while I was working on Decapitator.
Yeah, and he did a great job of jumping into Ken's vibe too, because this, I don't know if you caught earlier, Ken said that the whole idea of these SoundToys plugins were going to be very simple, straightforward versions of the plugins, and as you can obviously see, they're kind of the opposite of that.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
At least you guys had were merciful in making a tweak mode that's hidden, so you don't just absolutely, freak out immediately, so that you can have some basic controls, but then if you want to go to that place, it's at least like another...
It's possible.
Exactly. There you go. Exactly.
We thought a lot about that, actually. I mean, that was the whole thing of coming up with processors that were really powerful, but we tried to balance accessibility with programmability, and sometimes succeed and sometimes maybe not.
Well, I think many times, all the time. What's happening with the future of iLocks? We're going to keep iLock accounts but not have a physical iLock. Where's this thing going?
Well, you've seen us. We've already released, is it 1 or 2 plugins that
1.5.
1.5 that don't require a physical hardware key. That was sort of a test case for us to see how that went. With so many people working on laptops, especially Pro Tools users, studio users have been big supporters of iLock and have had no issue with it for years and years. But now with Logic and Live and laptop producing and going on the road, we realize that bringing a hardware dongle around can be a pain. It's get lost and get broken and all that. Uses up a USB slot. So we definitely want to move towards making that optional.
Okay, and then it just begs the question a little bit: how is the crack wars going? Are you winning the war? Is it can you tell?
Yeah, we can totally tell. I mean, I'm trying to think. We're at version 4.4 of our software now, and there was a version like 4.1. It was a few years back, 3 or 4 years back, where a bunch of the iLock-related plugins had been cracked. Kind of the core technology had been cracked. Since then, it was replaced by a completely new, from the ground up technology that had been in development for a long time. And I'm pretty sure anybody that's using that has not had any cracks at all. We haven't.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it's been really solid. I don't want to challenge anybody, but it's from what we hear, and we've got some people that go around on those very kind of secret little chat rooms that hackers hang out in. A lot of them have tried, and then it gets to a certain point and just throw up their hands and say, "I have no idea."
Okay. Plus, there's a new technology built into it that will make your head explode if you crack our software. Horrific. It's horrific.
Okay, and you guys can take the fifth on this one, but there were a couple cracks out there that did some weird stuff, like bursts of crazy white noise that I don't know if it would make your head explode, but it was. You can take the fifth. Was that just incompatibilities, or was that? I don't know.
Our stuff or somebody else's?
I'm not. Maybe your stuff.
Our stuff made, from what I understand, one of the cracks made a horrific noise, like really blow your head up, kind of horrific noise, and we were like, "Great, that's awesome."
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this: there's a bunch of stuff that's floating out there that people consider cracks that really aren't. Like it wasn't. They didn't find everything.
Okay. Okay. Good.
They didn't find a thing that calls the police instantly.
Right. Now, 64-bit thing took a minute. Now we're here.
Oh my God.
Oh my God! It was not that wasn't just add water and stir. That was a big undertaking, right?
That was a year and a half of development for pretty much our whole team.
Easy. That was
Easy, a year and a half to 2 years of just solid, flat out.
that was the deep in it time, and there was a lot of stuff ahead of time of looking at it and trying to figure out which direction they needed to go. Those guys were. It was harsh on them. I was glad I was not a coder during that time.
Not a lot of shaving or showering for a little while.
Well, I mean, I kind of appreciated the opportunity to rewrite a lot of old code, but
Yeah.
it's not always the most fun thing. I mean, it's gratifying in a certain way to go back and take. We had to rewrite all of our graphics code, which was the biggest part of that whole effort. And we were able to do it in a better way, and it was cleaner and nicer and all that. But it's a little frustrating doing that when you really want to just do new products.
And but now it's done, and
It's done.
64-bit is going to be here for a while. We're not going to 128 next week.
No, hopefully not. You never know with Apple, though. I mean, Apple has a habit of just dropping things out there
And telling the world, guess what? This is better.
yeah.
Okay, and then, all right. So on that note, what percentage of your users are Windows? What percentage are OS X or OS or whatever? Mac. Apple.
That's a good question. We don't have hard metrics on that, just because people buy our software. They don't have to specify one or the other, but I think it's roughly 60 Mac to 40 Windows.
That'd be a good guess.
Agree with that, Mitch?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's picked up a lot, but I mean, we came on as Pro Tools only, Mac only for a long time, so we got a lot of time invested in that side of the world. But it's certainly, I mean, and of course, at one point, Avid was trying to make everybody go to Windows for some reason, but so that certainly bolstered that, and a lot of users on Live and Cubase and Cakewalk and whatever else. So it's definitely, it's got to be in that range, but leaning heavy on the Mac. I'll shut up.
Other questions? Anyone? No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you-
Yes. Okay. Here we go.
Go ahead, Chen.
Go, Chen.
Would you guys talk a little bit about the new toys, the little promo tab? I checked out some of the price tags. It's awesome. It sounds like EchoBoy with attitude. So it sounds pretty cool.
This is your new sales head.
Oh, the Primal tab.
Mitch, with you,
Yeah.
Chen and Mitch. Yes, Primal tab. Talk about that just for a little bit.
Go, Mitch.
Primal Tap? Oh my God. Well, I mean, Little Primal Tap was one of those kind of beasts that, again, in that particular series of plugins, we're trying to find these little quirky pieces of gear or quirky, odd studio tricks that are really important and have a lot of character and are not really represented out there right now. So, Little Primal Tap, that's where it comes from the Prime Time, which was the wicked, weird delay, which had a really great idea, and then also kind of a, hey, we can't really pull this off for the time with the technology, so we're gonna do this instead, and that became the character of the delay, and that's the thing I think that's discussed in the video you shot with Ken, where it's
the video tells a great story. I think.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody who's watching this show, go watch the trailer. Mixmaster Wide Show, SoundToys. Not only do you get to see a visual tour of the code cave and the gear cave, but Ken walks through a little bit of how you transpose some of these classic pieces of analog gear into code and what inspired him to do it. So it's definitely worth the watch. Plus, you get to see Ken and me on a boat.
You also get to see the exclusive sneak peek of the big version of Primal Tab. No one else has seen it anywhere else except on that show.
Okay, so after you're done watching this, watch the trailer. All right, you guys. Time flies when you're hanging with the SoundToys guys. I didn't mean to make that rhyme, but I am a rapper, and I play one on television. And but really, thank you guys so much, Mitch and Ken, for making the time on a Sunday, and also just for making this incredible stuff that's really touched all of our lives and has really become such a big part of the way we make music. I can't thank you guys enough. And yeah, you know, huge part of what we do at DubSpot in the mixing mastering program revolves around the SoundToys creations, and I know more coming, including that flanger doubler. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and also our celebrity guest audience. Thank you guys for coming on and asking great questions. All right, Mixmaster Wyatt Show. Episode 4, SoundToys. Check the trailer, and thanks for watching, everybody, and especially thanks to Ken and Mitch from SoundToys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Amy.